You're live.
Okay, we are live. This is the conference committee on H868. It's Friday, May 3rd, I think, all day today. And we are going to be talking about the difference of the bill between two bodies, see if we can come to an agreement. The Senate has a proposal based on what we had talked about yesterday that I could walk through. We had sent it to Ledge Council, and they had done it in a different version, just like each sections. So you could also look at that if you want to, or we could kind of go through the sheet that we did yesterday.
Sure, and I'm just for clarification, I think at the header you updated it with May 2nd, but in the header it says updated 4/29, so that's two. So maybe I should make sure that I'm gonna.
Yeah, I think it's based on that section by section.
Yeah, exactly.
Or side by side.
Do you want to use the sheet?
Yes, I think that would be. I think that works for us. Yeah.
And then maybe
You want me to put it up then?
you can put your version up, and then we can. And then if you, as we're talking, if there's any changes from what you're understanding, Jen, you can just change it.
Okay.
So we agreed to 1 and 2.
Yeah.
Section 2A, we have proposed changes. There was concern about, this is about transportation buildings, and it was very specific to wood heating. We just wanted that to be one of the options, so we have language that just talks about.
Right, and our committee heard from the Agency of Transportation that they had some concerns with language, and this is what you kind of came up in response to that, right?
So that they're not have to
Install
rely on only on wood.
Yeah.
We like wood heating, but we don't want to make it require it always has to be wood heating, or make it seem like it only can be wood heating.
We're looking at the language, and I think I don't think I have any questions. I actually think we're okay with that. We can kind of close that out.
So the funds, the House construct of moving the funds around. One, we found out, and we could have other people weigh in if you want, that the carbon reduction grants can be used for electric vehicle charging. We also had concerns, but I don't know if we could get into it, about trying to have the money flow through the central garage for electric vehicles. But since we don't even need the money to go through there to do this kind of construct, we're just proposing to move 1.5 million from the carbon reduction grant to electric vehicle charging, specifically to what we just call Bronwyn's program, the ACCCD electric vehicle charging program. That's the community charging program.
Yeah, so I think we have a question about that, because I think when we did this construct, we thought we were taking federal money and turning it into state, very flexible dollars. Our committee had a lot of discussion about it and really wanted to direct that money to renters, like multi-unit dwellings, because those are the folks like that right now, that's a big inhibitor for folks to adoption. So I guess our question is, are multi-unit dwellings, I know I went back and dug into some of that reporting that we got on the eligibility for that federal grant, the carbon reduction grant. So I think our concerns would be, I think they said that it was public charging was eligible for this. So would this be the idea is that this would only be for public charging?
This would be for the program for community charging. That the requirement is that it's available to the public. So it could
workplaces and downtown attractions. I think.
And the reason why we're okay with that is because we want to use the EV infrastructure fee to fund the multifamily housing focused on that would be state money, so it'd be flexible. It could be 100% grants. This is 80/20 money, and so this money would just go to those community and workplace charging that's available to anybody that just can show up, pay for the charging, or if they want to do it for free, where the other money would be targeted towards the multifamily housing renters, and we could focus it on low and moderate income buildings.
So we might just have the two pieces are linked.
Yeah.
We just might have more we could discuss some of that now, but also I don't think it's an 80/20 grant. I think it's 100%. And I know that I think the carbon reduction program money is not 80-20 money, it's 100%.
Well, 100% us, but when we
I
do the
don't think we
project,
have, I don't think we have to match it.
okay, do you want to take this? Do you want
Can
to
we
hear
just,
it?
are we allowed to do that?
Yeah, we can do
Just
that.
speed things up
Michelle,
first?
do you want to put yourself on the record and answer that question?
Absolutely. Michelle Boomhauer, Vermont Agency of Transportation. The NEVI funding, or the carbon reduction program funding, excuse me, is 80-20 money also. And so we use the same construct we use with the NEVI funding, whereby the charging provider, like ChargePoint or whoever the company is, brings the 20% match, and then the state provides the 80% through the federal program, and that allows us to bring these to community locations without a community or workplace investment.
And that's different from the ACC's current program with GMP, right? They don't, it's not an 80-20.
They may have a different program, but
Ron came from somewhere else.
this would have to be adapted to that construct.
Yeah.
Okay,
So I think,
but that's the side of the other part, you want to just keep it open and get
I
back
think we
to
want
it.
to keep it open and come back to, because I think our concern was that we really wanted to focus on multi-unit dwellings. That was like really clear. That's how
Just have to agree to the fees and
Or you could just agree with her transfer of
Or we could go back to our
Yeah.
elegant concept.
Well, if you want to do that, we can talk about why we have a problem with the construct.
Do you want to, I'd love to hear about that
Yeah.
now, because I know that that's been a sticking point.
The problem is that we heard, and we could hear that testimony, and if you want, about problem of having that much money go through central garage, in addition to the other money that the central garage is already spending on battery electric vehicles, and what it would do to their budget. So I don't know if you guys saw this. We have handouts, right, Megan, of this? I didn't know if we were going to get into it, of the central garage. So here's a copy of it. Yeah, you passed that.
So this is probably,
If you want to get into
Todd, right, Todd?
Todd or
Todd and Dave Thurber.
Yeah.
Thurber. So basically, this is for 3 years is what they're saying. So these are their kind of equipment that need to buy. They are spending some money on EVs, so like for Lightnings or Mach-E's that they've bought for those kind of vehicles. But a lot of the other vehicles that they need to buy are vehicles that are like loaders and excavators and things like that are hard to do as EVs. And so if we'd like kind of say, okay, you're forced to try to spend this money on excavators. They'd spend a lot of money. We don't get as much carbon savings, and that means they don't have money to buy some of the other items. So we thought it was just burdening central garage vehicle purchases in a way that wasn't necessary.
Yeah, so, you know, in the carbon reduction plan that we got from the agency, you know, they were looking at the allocation of the 31.6, I think it's I'll say 31, but they split it up into 3 buckets, and one of the buckets, which was $9 to $10 million, was for electrification of AOT fleets. And I can bring, I think I might have a copy of that report, but it's like, it was AOT fleet and AOT heavy or AOT heavy equipment. So since there's that, they have $25 million in the central garage fund, and that carbon reduction money is over a few years. You know, they still have a few years. We thought, gee, 1.7 million of this equipment, if we're gonna put 9 to 10 million in there, didn't they already say that they were gonna be electrifying their fleet? And we just didn't see that it was that much of a burden, since they have this big fund that's flexible on top of that. So I don't know if
Yeah, no, and I guess I'll just add is, you know, if you just look at the 1.7 that we took was from Sprinter vans. There's 22 Sprinter vans. And the testimony that we received is it takes a while to get those, you know, ordered and, you know, basically be, you know, put out the door for use. So we were looking at, all right, we'll cut that in half. You know, we'll get these vehicles out quicker, you know, to get that benefit of carbon reduction. And it was sort of a win-win situation, you know. They could still buy their 11 or 12 get those in a quicker manner, and Central Garage can move forward in buying purchases, and it frees up money for the flexibility of what we desperately need for EV buyers is going towards multi-units. So at the end of the day, I think it's a great route to go. Maybe we can talk about, maybe it should be 1.7, go a little bit lower, but I think the construct is solid, and it's beneficial for, the residents of Vermont.
Well, I think the contract is very solid, because when we looked at the sprint vans and the amount of funding available for that, I had to think about cash flow, and I think it was the committee's opinion that when we're looking at that, by the time they're going to need this 1.7 that we moved over to Central Garage, will be 2 or 3 budget years down the road. And by that time, hopefully we'll see some of that carbon reduction grant money coming in. And the grant is coming in later. But if you think about it, if you buy them all today, you don't have to pay for them all today. However, I think it's easier for Central Garage to buy more, cars, Mustangs or Ford Lightnings or whatever pickup they want to buy, and replace those on a fairly quick basis, because they're available.
Right. Well, we don't disagree. So we're proposing to move 1.5 of the Sprinter vans, and it could be used for other things. Like there's other cutaways and stuff that we can replace.
Right.
But as far as the Central Garage, I'd like Michelle to kind of explain that a little more. She might be able to explain it a little better about what problems it creates in Central Garage to kind of force that funding through there in this fiscal year. Are you able to do that, Michelle?
Yes, thank you. So just to sort of clarify, the money in the carbon reduction plan for fleets, that could be not only for AOT fleet, but for municipal fleets and other fleets. So just want to sort of make sure that we understand that not all of that money in the carbon reduction plan is going into the AOT fleet. We had ordered a lot of Ford Lightnings, which were on back order for a long time. And so 6 Lightnings came in this year that were finally released. Additionally, we have a VW funding that we're using for an EV sweeper. And we are also planning to purchase additional Lightnings in FY25 with some of the FY24 carry forward carbon reduction funds that we were not able to get the vehicles in on time with. And so there is a certain number of vehicles in our fleet that are light duty Lightning type vehicles. They're like the F-150s that we can apply the EV funds to. The heavy duty vehicles and the heavy duty equipment, while we are trying to test drive some electric models, are not really on the sort of edge of efficiency at this point. So we might find ourselves in a position where we have to bring a generator to a site to charge an electric piece of equipment that hasn't made it through its performance period for whatever job it's on. So we have to be very selective in terms of how we deploy that equipment. The Central Garage Reserve Fund, as you are aware, we have the relocation of our Central Garage project that needs to be addressed. Not only do we need the $2 million that we've already talked about for a property purchase, but there are going to be fit up costs and other things that will come along and construction that will somewhat be covered by insurance, but there will be a gap there. So it's not as though we have this paucity of funds in the Central Garage Fund to rely upon. I think the most important piece here is that list that Senator Kirchley handed out, shows at the bottom the kinds of heavy duty things that we need to keep purchasing and rotating through our fleet on a regular basis to maintain the fleet in a manner that is going to be able to provide the functions we need. So snow plows and F-250s and 350s and other things. And so if this were to move forward, we would have to delay the purchase of those types of vehicles in FY25. So that's the concern that Todd and Dave came in and spoke to the Senate earlier this.
Okay. So we might come back with we might come back, I think.
That's our
I think we
reading.
might come back with
Yeah,
an idea or.
Thank you for that,
Thank you for
Michelle,
that, yeah.
but, with all due respect, the last 2 years, we kind of withstood, the transfer, 2 years in a row. And all of a sudden, AOT was able to find $2 million to buy land, for the Sumpter Garage. So it seems like they don't have trouble one time, but, when things are proposed that's outside of their, initial ask, it seems like there's, all of a sudden, there's heartburn, there's issues.
Well, they did have the money, right? I mean, so.
No, they do, that's the point, they did.
Glad they
Yeah,
did
yeah.
have the money for such a purchase,
Yeah,
because
yeah.
that's why they have the money, in case they
Yeah.
run into something like that. So if we just drain them right down to nothing.
Well, we're not, there was $11 million in that fund.
But we
Yeah,
are
yeah.
still draining them down to
Yeah.
an uncomfortable level, which they've explained why. They
Yeah,
don't wanna be down there. So I'm glad that they did have the 2 million.
We might have an idea
yeah.
to bring
yeah.
back. So I appreciate, it's helpful to understand your thinking.
Okay. That's section 2.
Yeah.
The section 3 through 6, we're agreeing on taking some from maintenance to do other things with it, agreed with the town highway aid, where to try to, come to some agreement, we're willing to go down some for public transit to keep the highway, some money to go to highway structures. Hearing from the towns about the needs for bridges and culverts and how there's always a demand there. But we still propose to not fund e-bikes, especially since we're talking about reducing public transit. We they don't have anything specifically against e-bikes, but we just feel like public transit is more important. So if we're gonna reduce funding for public transit, we can't give it to e-bikes.
And we know we have another 1.8 or 1.9 billion dollars coming for e-bikes. It's not guaranteed, but it has been like highly told to us that that's a grant that they're gonna get. And there's 1.8 or 1.9 million dollars in there. And so why do we wanna take the monies that we can critically use elsewhere, of state dollars, and we have more money coming?
So is that what you wanna talk about, or?
Sure, I'm just cognizant of time that I think this is gonna wind up being open, because I think this is the public transit money. This is the third year, the last 2 years, the House has, fought for this one-time money, and this is, to me, I think for our committee's perspective, this is like an FY26 problem that GMT has, and we're talking about FY25. So I'd like to be able to come back to this, because I think the other pieces, come together. And we also felt, just to put on the record, we felt that the highway maintenance spending reduction, we had proposed 2 million. So it's kind of sad to us that basically you didn't reduce it by 2 million. It's the 140,000. The sadness is over the E.
Right.
So
I guess we would just put that 140 into public transit as well.
yeah, is what you did. So I think there's some interplay here that we'd like to come back to.
I really think we have to think about college structures. We're talking about 250 or so towns construction, and I think there's the need is greater than we know right now. To get that restructure grant, a couple more million to 250,000 is frankly, it's.
Well, it's not like we didn't fund them at a higher rate already. I mean, and again, I want more money to go to towns as we can. But I think we did fund them another $4 million higher than what we did the previous year. I know when I was talking to Secretary Flynn, he was saying that he really fought hard for more monies to go to the highway town aid structure. And I think that he rounded up.
The reason we did it is because the governor, in the governor's recommended, was level funded. And we heard a lot of testimony testimony, as we know, the supply costs of labor and supplies are up, and this is one of the areas where.
Michelle, can we check on that as far as that? Didn't we put some extra money in the end for that highway town aid?
Which year, last year?
Well, just for this year coming.
Well, this year we agreed, you agreed to our, I think we're talking about town highway structures.
Yeah, this is a grant program to the locals, I think maybe on the statewide.
Yeah, A60, town highway.
We agreed with you all, you're happy that you agreed to that.
Okay, so we got
So let's come-
conflict.
Sure.
Yeah.
So there's section 7A we agreed to. Section 9, I couldn't remember what if we talked about that, which is plan for reporting delays, but first I'm looking at it for this kind of a section, so I can't remember what that even was. Did anybody tell me?
It is Corcoran, I think this is.
Well, it's just notification, obviously, when a project gets delayed, you get a notification, I think it's to the town and to our body. Is that the one?
No, this is,
I don't have the-
I'm like, I don't.
But it's just about transparency, there's been a couple projects that always seems to pop up and it's been delayed and, you find out after the fact. So this is just, letting people know.
And it was an existing, or you guys wanted to add something?
We wanted clear,
I'm just finding the,
I'm trying to find the language.
this was the language that we had in our, yeah, it's the same.
yeah.
What's that, it is section 9?
Section 9 in the as passed by House.
Yeah, I'm looking at the House version to see what we had, and then in the Senate version.
Yeah, ours is
deleted.
section 9.
Right, so that's, you have different section 9s. Theirs is plan for reporting delays.
You know what section it is in ours?
You took it out.
Oh, so
Yeah, that's why, yeah.
That's why I can't.
Yeah, there's
I have
renumbered,
to
so
look
yeah,
that
that's
up.
why.
I have it somewhere, right?
So this was new language that we put in, kind of in connection with the language that we had in the, but we were calling spike increase language in section 8.
Yeah, so this is about notification, transparency. We had some, and this was sort of like a compromise within our own side. And we decided to say, EOT, look at it, get back to us of, how you would like to proceed on this issue. But, it's just about letting people know,
Okay.
when they're possibly a delay.
Well, that's helpful, okay.
Yeah,
Well, we never really talked about it because I wasn't
Yeah.
sure what it was, so we'll keep it open, but hopefully we should be able to close that stuff. So then 10 through 14, we're already closed out. And then electrify your fleet, we can explain that if you want to.
Sure, and I think that would be helpful, and, I know we made some changes on our side, that, when we learned, that some e-bikes are cargo bikes and they're more expensive than 2,000, so maybe that was,
And we agreed with that extension to increase to $10,000. What we were concerned about is the percentage. So it was just a flat 2,500.
right,
So
okay,
we scratched that up and said up to 25%, but not to exceed 2,500. Because of the cargo bikes, basically, if you could get a cargo bike, let's say for $5,000, then you're getting a 50% incentive. And did we want to do that? We thought, well, we were thinking 25% would be a good incentive to encourage somebody to do it. So let's just limit to that in case there's a case where you can get a
I
$6,000.
think we're okay with that, I just think we needed to
Yeah.
make sure that we were understanding, so let's.
Yeah, and it keeps your change from 6,000 to 10,000.
Yeah.
So 13 is okay, 14, 15 we agreed to. We deleted 18 because we deleted the e-bike, so we didn't think we needed the language around that.
Well, if we delete the e-bikes, yeah, so let's just keep this open,
Yeah.
because it's part of the earlier section.
16, 17, 18 we already agreed to. So we got more education.
Yeah,
So that takes us to the EBSE funding plan and the regular, is that where we are?
yeah,
22?
that's right.
Yeah, 22 and 23, we're okay going
Going back
to the House position where the the AOT can update those things and report.
Okay, so going back to our language, great.
Yeah. And then we already agreed 19, 20, 21. We're just suggesting, we haven't done the language, haven't sent this to Jen yet, but section 21, those MTI grants is raising to 250. I know you had a question of what they were, and I forgot to ask Michelle. Do you know what the dollar amount was for the prior MTI grants? Have there been grants over 250?
No, 100,000 has been the cap.
Sometimes they get more than one, like
I can-
multiple years. Okay, so this would be more than 250 in one fiscal.
I think we looked at the language that you put in and thought that was good, so that like this MTI money isn't replacing other funding that can come elsewhere. I think that's good, and I think we had just concerns about the cap. So if you're proposing 250, right? I think we're okay with that.
So section 21 we can close out.
Excuse me, Mr. President. Section 23 on the EBSC regulation recommendation, did you leave that open?
No, we're proposing to agree with the House.
I think that was one of the ones I wasn't sure about.
Oh, but that is the one where we had
That's the
this
agency of agriculture.
agency of ag.
Did you have new language?
Yes, but we didn't,
Did it make it into the bill? That's
no,
what I
because we
think.
just had deleted it. But there was,
I think we heard.
there was, what we heard was that there was an agreement between the agencies, but we didn't have language in our bill. So we agreed that something needs to be done, but yeah, the House language was problematic, the way it was worded.
Yeah, so I think what had happened yesterday was you asked me to prepare new language that might be an alternative to the House
Right.
version. And so that you have that, I'm not sure if it's been shared yet.
Okay, no,
So we'd be open, so let's keep that open.
so keep that open,
Share that
we'll
with us,
send.
yeah. So it's not, so it's this proposed language.
Sorry, Michelle, thank you for checking that. So 23 is still open. Okay, so
We're on the left page.
last page. And the Senate sections, that's 22 through 26 we agreed to. The transportation funding study, we're willing to, as part of this proposal, this package deal, to do the transportation study. That the agency was, as you said, prepared to do some studies so they could do that. The EV infrastructure fees.
So that's okay, but thank you, I just want to say thank you for agreeing to do that.
For the fees, okay.
Well, no, for
Yeah.
32 for putting that back in, because I do think it'll help us, it's an outside third-party consultant, we had a lot of details about what we wanted to direct them to do, so it's not just public transit, it's the whole picture, so I appreciate that.
So that's that. So the infrastructure fees, I know it's a big issue for you guys, so assume you don't want to talk about it right now, or do you want to?
Yeah, what would be helpful, I know that, there's a fiscal note that shows I think we need to kind of dive into the fiscal note a little bit more to understand. And I think we had a lot of questions about the fee and like when, alignment with how soon the MBUF would really be ready, because we heard from testimony that also went into Ways and Means this last week, that it's actually sooner than we thought. So I just feel like I need to get a lot of.
I tracked that down, and what the problem was that there was a slide in a PowerPoint that showed this is what MBUF was going to be, and it was July of 2025.
Right.
But then the next slide was here's our new projections, July of 2026, because of the delay in the grant. So they haven't even applied for the grant yet. So 2025 was
the original was what we were all anticipating July 1, 2025 for MBUF.
So they should probably not include that slide in the presentation because I think it does confuse people, but they have the slide. That's what it was. This is what it is. So it's July 2026 is the projection. We don't know if they're going to hit that based on the grants and everything else. So that's why we want the EV fees. So we can do that multifamily housing, which we think is really important. If we want to get more EVs, we need more charging infrastructure. And then since it's 100% general fund, we could do 100% grants. We're much more flexible how we use that money. So that generates that $1.9 million.
Is it 900,000 in the first year?
$900,000 first year, 1.7 the second year.
If it's in October, so it would be a little less if it was January.
So if we moved it to, yeah. So I think we might let's keep this open, because I think it's in play with the other thing, but did you wanna?
No, I just had
So you-
a question for Michelle. Can you remind us what the amount of the grant that we're applying for above is?
Yeah, we anticipate the entire program, standing up the entire program will be 3.5 million. And as you recall, we set aside $350,000 in match monies last year, and there's another 350,000 in match monies in this year's budget in anticipation of the need to match the federal funds.
Is that reimbursable if we were, not saying hypothetically, if we were to find money, could we get reimbursed? Or if, once we spend our money, there's, like, could
Could
we
we
do it
advance
and
the
then still
money?
apply for the grant?
I guess I'm not following.
So like do it first and then say, hey, we already spent the
Oh,
money.
no.
Back bill.
We have to be awarded the grant and have a contract in place, before we can start spending money. I think the thing that would probably happen, given how slow this program has been, would be that, there's a possibility we could go ahead and, once we're awarded and have a contract in place, use the money we have on hand first to be able to expedite working with the contractor and, not have to be in a position where we're like waiting for a federal reimbursement and all of that. But really, everything goes hand in hand.
Okay, thank you.
So you have been contemplating this already, you haven't done any actionable items
In terms of the grant application?
in terms of thinking about how the system is going to.
Oh, no, we absolutely know how the system's gonna work. We've been meeting with Parsons and we've been meeting with, the consultant who works on the, FAST, that works on the, other part of our DMV core system. And the automation of our auto inspection system and the automation of our DMV systems is what's going to allow us to be really a national leader in this area.
And you've been piloting some of that already, right? Which is how the,
Really, no piloting has occurred. We basically went from full analysis of how we would do this and, what the options were coming to an option. And then we're gonna go straight into implementation. We have a identified pool of people who are impacted. We have their addresses. We can communicate with them about what's coming well in advance. And also through the dealers, we would be communicating with them. So they're getting the word out as well when they're making sale agreements.
so that's helpful. It's, I think I probably should just say this at this moment. I think it's a little bit confusing to the public to have a fee for whether it's a year or a year and a half or 2 years, and then to change to something else. I think it's just a little bit clunky, but also just hard to the campaign to message, like, this is what this is gonna be. I don't think I just wanna say, I think in our committee, we people who drive EVs need to be paying their fair share, but that's not, their fair share is about going into the transportation fund for the paving of the roads and all of that. I mean, I think this is kind of like asking people that drive combustible engines to build gas stations, right? So I think that's where the rub is for our committee, and that we thought that the MBUF, we were anticipating that this session that we'd be developing and fine tuning, and that the policy and that would be going live July 1, which coincides with the vote. So it feels like we're this close to the MBUF, which just seems like really, from an equity perspective, really fair, right? Like the miles that you drive, similar to the gas tax, the miles that you drive, you pay, So I think this is good to hear your thinking on it and to hear where the agency is and to clarify, any confusion that might have happened over in the Ways and Means Committee. But to just say our Ways and Means Committee hasn't really had their hands on this. They haven't been able to work on this really at all. And it's hard to do it at the end, so.
Right, well, it's not at the end, because we passed it a while ago, but I get your point.
Well, the EV fee part, not the MBUF. The MBUF, they totally had time, our committee had time to do that, to delve into that. And so I think there are some equity issues. We certainly, last year we raised the DMV fee for EV drive assist would be 100% increase, not a, you know, so those are the things, but how about we leave it open and come back with some ideas?
Sure.
Okay.
Do you need to go, or do you wanna try to do it 30 or 31?
I think we might need to wrap up. If these are kind of smaller items, right? Like, could we do that at any time?
Yeah.
I think they're like, you had some revised language on central garage. I mean,
That we did an
There was an
amendment on the
amendment,
floor, we
which I
can just
think-
explain, and that's also what we did with the roof.
that would be, I think those are two, so if we can pause there and come back.
Okay.